Hola from Lisbon in Portugal, and welcome to the Oeiras In-Port Race, a critical stage in the Volvo Ocean Race with vital points up for grabs for the four front runners. This is the magnificent Belém Tower, sitting right on the water's edge of the Tagus River. And this is the magnificent port of Lisbon. And this is Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, parading down to head out onto the water for what is a quite critical stage of this Volvo Ocean Race. We have four front runners, any one of whom mathematically could still win this race. Every point here vital. With me in the commentary box, former world champion sailor Peter Lester. And I mean, we've talked about this today. This is everything about this race today.
Well, it is, and you know, decided tension in the air, the atmosphere around the teams, in fact around the docks and the supporters. You know, there's not a hell of a lot of points left in the game, and this in-port race, and we look at Camper, they're in really in a must-win situation. They're fourth overall, really an outside chance still, a mathematical chance, but Martin, I expect that team to be aggressive today.
Well, they'll have to be. They've absolutely nothing to lose, and the same applies to, I guess, in some respects, to these guys here. This is Puma Ocean Racing, powered by Berg, and they too are in with a shout. They too have been a huge improver, and they must really fancy their chances as well.
Well, they're a bit better off. They're on 171 points, so what's that? They're 12 points off the lead. And I think they're in with a real chance. And I'm hearing, Martin, they've still got one sail button owing, so that they can have a new sail on board, maybe for the in-port, maybe for the start tomorrow. Here's Telefonica. They've been race leader. They were overtaken in the last leg. They're now second overall. Iker Martinez and his team, they need to really turn this one round. They started off the Volvo Ocean Race so strong. They've really, since Auckland, not really shone. They've had a few errors, but look, big local support.
Very big local support.
Spanish contingent.
Vociferous here for this Oeiras In-Port Race. And Groupama now, these are our race leaders. The man in the green hat is one of the New Zealander on board, a guy called Brad Marsh. And these have been perhaps the greatest improvers in this race, and we do know this is a very quick boat, especially on a reach, and they just keep getting better, these guys.
They certainly do. They started off poor, really, out of Alicante down to Cape Town, but they've just incrementally just improved. The boats are blisteringly quick, very, very fast two-sail reaching. Look out for them, I think, in the league. Today, I think they will just want to keep their nose clean. I expect a bit of hustle out there today, and I think this team will really want to keep out of any jostling that goes on in pre-start. Iker Martinez, I think he needs to mix it up and use his Olympic skills, really. He's used to boat on boat.
Well, a lot of laughs out there. They're obviously
happy.
in pretty good spirits, and they've had disastrous in-port races. The last two races they've come dead last through really quite basic errors. I mean, the first time in Itajaí they turned left early and put themselves from first to last, and then in Miami in the in-port race there they were lying second, and they hit the mark, had to do a penalty turn and went right to the back of the fleet, and that really opened up the scoreboard. And then Groupama stepped in the next leg, coming in second behind Puma to take the lead. Fabulous setting here in this wonderful city, which is absolutely steeped in a maritime history going back to the 14th and 15th centuries. And we're looking here at absolute state-of-the-art boats in this 21st century. And if you go back to the 14th and 15th centuries, they too had state-of-the-art craft which they set out to explore the world. So big heritage here that you really feel very strongly. This bridge, the 25th of April bridge, it's modelled on the Golden Gate, but is not part of that Golden Gate from San Francisco. Ken Reed, from the skipper of Puma, getting himself sun-tanned up, lot riding on his shoulders, and he's just quietly progressed, risen up the scoreboard, got themselves amazingly back in contention after having to withdraw from the first leg after losing their rig. And they just seem to have gelled, don't they?
Big time.
In the last few legs.
Started off disappointingly. They broke a mast and they had big problems. Great recovery by the shorting. Martin, I think Puma are the sleeper in the pack. They're currently lying third. They're in touch. And we do know they've actually got, you know, an ace in their pack with I believe they've got a new sail that they can put on board. Both boats ahead of them, Groupama and Telefonica, have used up their sail allocation. But Puma and Kenny Reid, if they have got a new sail in their inventory, whether it's for this race this afternoon.
How significant would that be? I mean, is it a real silver bullet?
No, it is absolutely significant. The sails get beaten up, especially the sails that are rolled up, the downwind sails. And if Puma do have a sail, a new one, a fresh sail, you know, it's a bit like car tyres on a race car. New stuff is faster than old stuff, and I think that's a significant factor for Puma.
Fresh fruit, they call it. I wonder how tasty it might turn out to be. I think you could, you know, you said it earlier today when we came down here that there's a real little tension in the air. No more so than with Camper. If they don't really pull it out of the hat today, then effectively their chances of a win are over, and they'll just be fighting, and even then it's going to be a big fight for them just to get on the podium. They know that the other three boats in front of them, they're all from the same designer, and they are all quicker, and this is on one particular point of sail.
Adam Minoprio just putting a support there between the cap shroud, or both cap shrouds. It was interesting yesterday, Martin, you and I were lucky enough to meet up with Grant Dalton, who's the team leader for Emirates Team New Zealand, and of course Camper is being managed under that banner. Dalton was pretty candid, wasn't he, about Camper's chance, really.
Yeah.
Slow boat, and for Camper to stay in the game, to be blunt, they've got to win today.
So that means a gamble? It means risk-taking?
Yeah, definitely. I would expect Nicholson to push hard in the pre-start. Dalton made it very clear he expected the afterguard on Camper, so really to be aggressive, and that'll come down really to Chris Nicholson on the helm, and Stu Bannatyne calling the shots. Adam Minoprio, who we just see, I think Dalton has really put it on that afterguard on Camper to do the business today. And really, the downside, there's not a big downside if they take a risk, because you know, they have to win. Ian Walker, who won the leg over the Atlantic for Abu Dhabi, and that will be a relief for Ian Walker and his team, because again, they have perhaps been a little bit disappointing, but they'll always look good inshore. So another team to watch, and a little bit, Martin, they could be the spoiler in the pack.
Well, very much so. I mean, I was reading some comments from Ian Walker that they don't want to, as he said, inadvertently affect the outcome of the race. I don't see how they can avoid it.
Okay, now you can say,
because it's really important for them to sort of capitalise from their sponsors' point of view on what they've managed to achieve by winning a leg and by winning two of the in-port races. And they, you know, if it hadn't been for losing the rig and then the subsequent damage through the Southern Ocean, they would be, you know, obviously right up there. And we do know that in in-port conditions, flat water, the boat's a little flyer. It's proved that. It might have got a bit more beaten up than the others offshore, but certainly inshore it's a flyer. Another dark horse here, well, that's Team Sanya that we're looking at now, and they want a podium place. I mean, this is an old generation boat. It's from the last race. It's turned out to have little moments here and there, but the boat's been, you know, it's twice been around the world, and that is really telling on the boat. But they really want a podium spot, so they're going to be in the mix and they're going to fight. And I mean, you know, you've done enough of these races and this type of racing to know that when you're coming down to the, you know, the nitty-gritty right at the end of it, you talk about, you know, Groupama here, Frank Camas perhaps playing a fairly conservative role, staying out of trouble. But how difficult is it if you take a defensive type of role and try to just look after yourself?
You know, sometimes the best, the cliche, the best the best tactic is to attack, because if you go passive, and I think today will get a bit mixed up. I think there's a bit of tension in the air, the stakes are up, and for Group Armour and Frank Camas to keep out of trouble, maybe a tactic could be to actually get right in the mix and you know, get clean, get off the front. The race, Martin, will be dominated by the start. It's going to be a downwind start, and the ability to get clear off the line into clear air. They're going to have tide running with them up to that first mark. And we do know if Group Armour gets clean, she's very fast, and Camas will be, I think, but I still think he will try and just preserve his assets, keep out of trouble. The last thing you want to do when you're in the lead is get in a rules situation.
Well, I guess part of the issue in these in-port races is that they aren't very long. They're short races, and there's very little recovery time.
Well, I don't think there's any recovery time. If you make a mistake, you know, as we've seen, a mistake is very costly. If you pick a wrong mark, or you get a bad start, or if you get a penalty from the it's on water umpiring. All those things will come into play, and these points are very valuable for the in-port. Well, a Telefonica contingent are here, megaphones and all.
Yeah, well, they're out in force here, the spectators, for this departure ceremony in the Oeiras In-Port Race, as they get out onto the Tagus River. And we went out and had a bit of a look yesterday evening. Absolutely glorious, going past all historical monuments and the rest of it. But we were out there as well, not just to get our bearings, but to try and see the way that the race course worked. This is the Belém Tower, and as I was saying, in the background is this famous bridge. 25th of April it was called. It was named after a politician at one stage, but then after a bit of a revolution in the 1970s, they changed the name to the day that revolution happened. And we think we will see these boats actually go under the bridge, because that's at least one part of the course.
That's a nice shot there, looking up towards the bridge. My understanding is we're going to start right at the bottom of the current tide. A lot of current running through here. We could see 2 or 3 knots halfway through the race. And it runs up under the bridge,
well,
and then there'll be a
70 metres of clearance there is there to get under that bridge. And it really is a very dominant feature here, going across that the Tagus River. With Israel on Group Armour. I wonder how they're all feeling, these guys. I mean, you know, the whole day is a mouth-watering prospect for us as spectators, but I would imagine it'll be some fairly dry mouths out on the boat when we get down to the sharp end of that starting box. I can just about feel it now. I mean, well, it's going to be, we're a couple of hours away yet.
Martin, strategically, it's a tricky one. You know, for the first time, we're going to see an in-port race with a lot of current. I'm just thinking back, I think the last one probably in a similar sort of stadium setup would have been in Auckland, where there was a lot of current. But in Auckland, I think a knot and a half would have been max current. We're going to have double that this afternoon. And coming back into the wind against the current, upwind, the ability of these boats to short tack up the shore could be a factor, because they're in offshore mode, they're not inshore boats. And if one of these teams can push hard and short tack up against the current, get tidal relief against the shore, and Frank Camas, and we can see there you can see how confined, this is the course we think we could be dealing with. If we're going to start, go up under the bridge with the tide running with us, push right up around the marker. We'll have a left-hand turn, and then back up under the bridge against the current, and I'd expect the teams to work the city side. There'll be tidal relief against that city side wall, and short tacking into the wind, Martin. It'll be something that we'll all enjoy.
Well, working the wall, we called it in Auckland, and we saw Camper with Emirates Team New Zealand work that wall to perfection to score their only top of the podium win in this race, and they'll be looking to do something similar if they're going to stay in the hunt.
Martin, I can just see there, we're talking about team leaders being here. There's Pedro Campos, the guy with the scarf around the neck. He is the CEO for Telefonica. And I think is that the first time we've seen Pedro on board? Maybe he was there in Alicante. Yeah, I think he was there in Alicante.
Yeah, but certainly while we've been on the circuit, a legendary character of all forms of Spanish yachting.
Ex-America's Cup helmsman and skipper in, 1992 in San Diego?
1999, and then 2000 in Auckland. He was there as well with that Spanish boat with the notchy little bow. I remember it well. Lovely crowd here, lovely atmosphere. Mike Sanderson with one of his nippers, and he's been quite, for him, as we were saying, he really so wants a podium, and the boat has shown little moments, hasn't it, that it can do it.
But Martin, it's hard. Yeah. When you're off the pace, and this boat really hasn't got the legs. It's not as fast as the other 5 boats in the field. For Sanderson to get up and get on the podium would be certainly an achievement, and it will come down for him. He a bit like Kemper. For him to get on the podium, he's got to win the start.
Well, we've seen them win starts before, but then they have been chased down. But the other thing that you look back at. If we look back to Miami, the in-port race at Miami, that it looked, and we've seen this a couple of times, it happened again in Itajaí for different reasons, but we've had a situation where we've just seen the race that has looked predictable suddenly turn on its head.
Yep.
I mean, how many lead changes did we have in Miami, because the wind was so fickle? And here we've got the current, we've got the current in play, what we know is a shifty wind if it comes in. It's not. It's not dead smooth. Cameron Dunn we're looking at here, navigator on board, the tactician rather, on board Sanya. He'll have a keen eye for what's going to be going on in the way the current's working as I look out towards that river.
I think the big variable today will be the current. I'm sure we'll talk about it all day. I mean, the traditional times really for opportunity is off the line, the start. Then there's the mark roundings. When they go to mark 1, they have to get their Jenica off, turn round, and then come back up win. But the other additional factor we're going to have in this race, because the boats are going to want to work out of the current on the city side, will be if one of the teams has the ability to out-tack, to tack closer to the wall. Tacking frequency will be a big factor on these boats. It's difficult. They're difficult boats to tack because they're undermanned, and I think that's something to look out. If one of the teams is able to dominate that short tacking duel, we will see lead changes.
See the young Sanderson at the wheel there, like father, like son, etc. Nice atmosphere there. That's Richard Mason having a chat over the lifelines with one of the Volvo Ocean Race photographers, Paul Todd. And the scene is set, and I reckon that I guess that it is so exciting because there is so much at stake. I mean, we've talked over the past few days about the fact that, here we are with 4 teams still in contention, and it's never happened to this degree in any of these races, and stretching back the thick end of 40 years now. We've had close finishers and all the rest of it, but we've never had it where there are so many boats still in with a realistic chance of winning it. Well, this absolutely stunning monument to the discoveries. The man out at the front there is Henry the Navigator, who was a sort of patron of Portuguese exploration, and in his hand there he's holding a carrack, which was the forerunner of the galleons, and these were these amazing boats that they set off to go around the world. Behind him there are altogether 33 figures from the 15th and 16th age of discovery, and one of the leading figures there is of course Vasco da Gama, who was commander of the first ships to sail from Europe to India and opened up a direct sea route to Asia. And it's just part of this. You feel the history in this place, and we'll see more historical monuments as we go up the river, and particularly one of the turning points, which will be Commerce Square, which we'll talk about later when we see it in the distance. Mike Sanderson, fairly, I can't quite think of the word to describe it. It looks like he's out for a Saturday sail and pretty happy about it. And knowing that he's nothing to lose by throwing it in and mixing it up a bit. So I think we'll be soon getting into the departure ceremony as we look at Cristo Rey. This is the national shrine of Christ the King. 80 metres or 260 feet tall. It's just to the right of the 25th of April bridge. You can see that huge tower up there, and really erected as a sort of a thanks for being spared. The Portuguese were spared the horrors of the Second World War and erected this statue as a kind of appreciation of that point. As we look, I'll take a virtual look at the Monument to the Discoveries, right across the Tagus River, and it's a formidable body of water that's going to be giving us some formidable racing this afternoon. So first to leave the dock and head out into the river is Team Sanye, and away they go to a lot of the usual razzmatazz from the shore team. Team Sanye on their way. Well, they've had a pretty extraordinary trip around the world, these guys, and you've got to admire their resilience. I mean, and the frights that they've had to overcome. I mean, when they holed the boat and the rudder broke and punched a hole in the back of the boat, filled the back of the boat up, and they just managed to get the watertight doors locked off in the stern of the boat there, and they described it, Richard Mason, who you see there, he described the doors as pulsing under the pressure of the water until they could relieve the pressure and get some equilibrium, and then they had to gently nurse the way all back to Tauranga, the port of Tauranga in New Zealand, and then it went on a ship and has rejoined the race in Miami. Ian Walker now, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. Well, I can tell you, the picture, you could put up a number of pictures of people who've started this race, through this race, and then the situation that they're at now. And Ian Walker's face can tell all the stories, and it's just like reading them out, because the expression on his face when he arrived here with a first leg win in his Volvo Ocean Race career, a first leg win and an unexpected one for Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. Well, the look on his face was, I mean, he lost 10 years and he had a beam from ear to ear instead of the frown and the scowl that we'd so often seen on his visage. And here he is heading out now, knowing that he's in with a good shout of a win in conditions that his boat just eats up. Breeze, light air, breeze, flat water, and they're in with a shout. Now, Camper with Emirates Team New Zealand, they head out, and more at stake for this team than any other if they are to stay in the hunt. You can pull out your calculators and work out the maths. They are complicated, odds stacked against them, and you have to feel for these guys. They've turned out to have a boat that's a click off the pace, and in some ways it's amazing that they've stayed where they've stayed.
Well, yeah, it is. It's hard if you're off the pace. I mean, they have to be sailing at 100% all the time to keep up with the three boats ahead of them. It's Linda Ray there. It's Tony Ray's lovely wife. And Anisha Ray over there. The whole family is certainly Camper have got their fans there. There's Grant Dalton just having something to eat. So Dalton's sailing on board today, Martin.
Yes, he's,
that'll keep them on their toes.
Well, he's just a guest.
You've got to be joking. Granted guest.
Well, yeah, that would be interesting. I'd quite like to be a little fly on the wall there, and in some ways we will be. Ken Reid now takes out Puma Ocean Racing, powered by Berg. Heading out here to the Oeiras In-Port Race. And as you were saying, well, not dark horse really, I mean, they've always had that potential, but the potential is being realised more and more by the American boat.
Yeah, I think for this boat, you know, lots of potential, a few bullets left in the chamber in my mind, and Ken Reid and the team, they'll always look comfortable inshore. Of course, Ken Reid comes from America's Cup background, multiple world champion, and you've got to believe he would see this one as an opportunity to maybe close down some of the points between himself and Groupama, who's in the lead, Telefonica. Kenny Reid needs a good one today for Iker Martinez and Telefonica. They need to turn it round. They're second, they're right there, but
well, is this the day they stop the rot for their in-port race?
Could go either way for them, you know.
Well, you can't imagine them surely having 3 shockers, one after the other.
No, but I think it's difficult, you know. They don't look as relaxed and as composed. I mean, we're seeing the smiling faces through gritted teeth almost with that team. And the other thing with them, they have, I understand, used up all their sail inventory. So they're relying on, but this one again will be dominated by good start, good tactics. And Telefonica is very much set up in terms of the mechanical functions for offshore sailing. Frank
Camas at the wheel of Groupama.
Well, he was just delighted to be in the lead, Martin. I mean, I think he came in and said, well, it's a surprise to be in the lead of the Volvo Ocean Race, but it's a nice surprise. And boy, have they just stepped it up. From a disappointing first leg from Alicante to Cape Town, this team have just got better and better.
Stepped it up big time, and well, we'll watch them when they get out there, and the race starts in just over quarter to 1. We're back on air, but for a 1 o'clock start. But when that breeze comes in, this thing just lights up, and it looks quick because it is quick, and they've just sailed it. They've just sailed it beautifully, and Frank Camas has, you know, converted so effortlessly from the multi-hull round the world. Incredible CV that he's got, incredible record offshore anyway, and this is really enhancing it. And you know, for the French in particular, they love their long distance racing and getting out there.
Looking at Puma hooking up the Genoa as they go out, waving to the spectators on the end of the pier. And this is the first glimpse we really have a look, you know, have a bit of a look at the wind on the water. Yeah, there's a bit of breeze in. It's a westerly wind, so it'll be a downwind start. And Martin, it's good, you know, good signs actually. We're going to get away on time. This is the course, so it's a downwind start, down under the bridge, up, and then round the turning mark to port. So it's a left-hand turn, and then back into the wind along that city foreshore, and the boats are going to work that foreshore into the wind for tidal relief.
Well, that's the racetrack, and we're going to be back out there at 12:45. We're coming back on air, 12:45 local time here in Portugal, 11:45 UTC. And we're really looking forward to bringing you the race, this Oeiras In-Port Race here in Portugal. It's so much at stake for all these guys. The points are absolutely vital, and the pressure, well, hopefully that's going to bring us some incredible racing this afternoon, and it's a mouth-watering prospect indeed. So from the Volvo Ocean Race here in Portugal, we look forward to welcoming you back, 12:45 local, 11:45 UTC. Until then, good afternoon.